Hey there, I'm Brian Goulet of gouletpens.com, and I want to show you an overview today of the Faber-Castell Loom. It's kind of a cool pen. It's not new per se. It's new to me, though. Faber-Castell is a new brand that we've recently picked up at Goulet, and I did a review already of the Faber-Castell Basic, and this is kind of its sibling, I guess, the Loom. It's a cool pen. $40, nice little intro pen, not the cheapest thing you can get, but a really, really solid pen for the price. Lots of different color options, so I wanted to kind of just go over all that stuff with you here today. All right, so what you're getting for 40 bucks with the Faber-Castell Loom. Here is the packaging. So if you look at the box, it's the same box that the Basic comes in. It's got this outer sleeve on it that you can just do nothing with. You actually don't even have to take that outer sleeve off if you don't want to. But it's got this nice little silver kind of embossing on here, really nice, and it's got this little tray that kind of slides out here, and then it's going to have an instruction manual in all kinds of different languages that doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but it's there. And then it's got the pen kind of resting in here that has this little plastic sleeve, and it's got a little nib size indicator here that you can just slide right off. But then once you actually get to the pen itself, you'll see it's a snap cap pen, and then in the guts of the pen it has this little plastic spacer here and an ink cartridge. Now this is a standard international short ink cartridge. This pen does accept standard international cartridges and converter. So there's a bunch of different color options for the Loom. You have basically two different types of finishes on the body and several different cap colors. On the body, you have the piano finish, which is this really shiny metal, which is basically a fingerprint magnet. So if fingerprints bother you, stay away from the piano finish. And then there's the metallic one, which is this nice kind of brushed metal look. That one I really kind of dig. If you're a fan of like the Lamy All-Star type look, very similar kind of thing going on here. So going from left to right, I have the piano black, piano lime right here, the piano plum, the piano white, and then getting into the metallics, we've got metallic silver, metallic orange, metallic blue, and metallic violet. So let's take a closer look at the Loom. The one I am choosing to show here is the metallic violet. I don't know why, I just thought this would be a nice, pretty one to show you here. It's a nice pen. It's not a very large pen. It's got a good amount of weight to it though, 32 gram weight, so it's pretty hefty. But it's not extremely large. I've got pretty good size hands here, and this pen fits very comfortably in my hand. It feels a little small, if anything, but I think most of you would actually find this pen to be quite comfortable. It's got a straight barrel, it's got kind of this bulbous cap to it, and it's got a nice engraving here with the Faber-Castell logo, established in 1761. This company's super old. They've been around for a while, they know what they're doing. And then this clip you've got, it's a shiny metallic clip, so even on the metallic version of the Loom, you're still gonna have a little bit of that shiny metal that'll be a fingerprint magnet, so bust out the cleaning cloth every now and then to deal with that. It's a really thick clip, but it is spring tension, so it does give you a good amount of space there to get it onto basically whatever kind of material you got on your shirt pockets. It is a snap cap and is a push to post. It posts a little bit easier than it snaps. The snap can be a little tough for some. It's not a big deal for me though. And then on the grip of the pen, it's got a couple of little ribs here. So even though it's a metal grip, it is a kind of anodized, it's not a slick metal grip, and it's got kind of these rings on it that stick out a little bit, so it gives you a kind of a nice place to grip on here. The nib here is a little bit smaller nib than some other pens, but it's smooth nib, and it's got kind of this neat Faber-Castell design. It's definitely not a kind of generic nib. They've got their own logo stamped on it with extra fine, fine, medium, or broad. And then if you want to look at the cap here, you can see that it's got the Faber-Castell logo kind of engraved into the cap there. All right, so let's go ahead and ink up the Loom. For this, I'm going to use Faber-Castell Hazelnut Brown. They do have their own line of inks, about 6 colors. I don't have a lot of browns, so the hazelnut is the one that I wanted to use. So, nice bottle. The pen is a standard international cartridge converter. I've got the converter in this one. I can use either a regular Standard International or the Faber-Castell one. I chose the Faber-Castell one here just because, you know, it's the one for that brand, so I thought I'd kind of stick with the brand. So I'm just dropping the pen so that the nib is down completely submerged into the ink, and then just bring it back up there, wipe it off a little bit. I got a little paper towel, so I'll be able to just kind of wipe it off. It does kind of tend to want to catch the ink right behind where that nib unit kind of fits into the grip of the pen, so it helps to kind of get your fingernail in there and get that cleaned out a little bit. But the rest of the pen cleans off pretty easily aside from that little groove. And then I just screw the body back on, and this thing is ready to write. All right, so I'm using Rhodia number 16 dot pad here. It's 80 gram white paper. It's kind of my favorite paper to use, especially for, you know, testing out a new pen because it's consistent. I know what I'm using. I've got the fine nib inked up on this loom, and you know, I can use it posted or unposted. The balance is actually pretty good on this pen either way. The cap is not really heavy, so it's actually quite comfortable for me. Nib is very smooth, especially the fine, medium, and broad. The extra fine is a little bit toothier, but it's still pretty smooth. This is a fine nib. Pretty wet pen. And it's a German nib, so the fine, medium, and broad are pretty consistent with most of the European nibs. I did find the extra fine, though, is really quite fine, a lot closer to more of like a Japanese fine. So if you want to get a really fine line, that extra fine is the way to go. Otherwise, the fine, medium, and broad really write pretty wet. So I wanted to show you some comparable pens to the Loom because you might not be as familiar with this one. Some other pens that I'm more familiar with here, I've got the Lamy Studio. This one is the one in Imperial Blue. It's not completely the same. The shape is quite different, but the weight is fairly similar, and it's got a very kind of that same, like, you know, matte kind of metallic look to it. The Lamy does have a shiny grip to it, which I actually don't like quite as much, but the nib range is fairly similar, and they're going to write pretty similarly as well. Both pens post. And then you've got the Faber-Castell Basic. This one is going to be really pretty similar, especially because, you know, well, it's the same brand. So the main difference between the Loom and the Basic, though, is when you go to post these two, because if you look at the length of the Loom next to the Basic, it's dramatically different here. So the Basic, if you remember in that video, if you saw it, it's almost unwritable. Even with me, I have a very large hand, but this pen is so long when I'm trying to write with it posted. It's not particularly heavy or unbalanced, but it looks crazy. It looks like a wand. But the Loom is much, much more reasonable. And then the last pen I wanted to compare to, the Monteverde Impressa. This one is got kind of a matte thing too. It's got some interesting colors going on with it. This one is really close in price. It's the same price actually as the Loom. And you know, it's a snap cap as well. All these are snap cap, push to post. So all of these are fairly comparable. But if you like any of these other ones, you'd probably be a fan of the Loom. So to kind of summarize some of my thoughts about the Loom, I've got some take it or leave it points, right? So things that I would take about this pen. I do like that it's hefty. It feels really durable. It's going to be a pen that I feel like is going to last me a long time. It's hefty. It writes really smoothly. It's got a good nib range. That extra fine nib especially gets you really, really fine, which I really kind of like, especially with a German pen. And then the fact that it does accept both cartridges and converters, and it accepts the regular Standard International converter, which the Basic does not. That's a big win for me. For the Loom, some things that I really could leave it with this pen, it doesn't come with a converter. You know, and $40, I really kind of wish that it would. It's okay that it doesn't. It's only a $5 converter, but even still, it would be really nice if it was included. But that's just their decision. And then the piano finish on these pens really takes a lot of fingerprints. You know, I personally don't like the piano finish. I like that there's a metallic option for it as well, so I'm really okay with that. I like the metallic colors better anyway, but just something to point out. And then the last thing is it can be a little tough to uncap. Capping it is not so bad, but uncapping it might be a little tough for some of you, at least initially. I think over time, the capping mechanism will break in a little bit and be easier, but it can be a little tough initially. So those are my thoughts on the Faber-Castell Loom. If you have any other questions, you can always leave a comment on YouTube or on Ink Nouveau, and you can check out all the latest up-to-date specs and details on gouletpens.com. If you like this video and want more like it, be sure to subscribe on my YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.